Welcome back to the stream, everyone. Gonna do some three-dimensional design here. This is just hopefully wrapping up. Maybe I don't have enough time to make this a super long stream, so maybe we won't wrap it up, but we're getting near the end of this little project I wanted to do based on just making a little 3-button remote control. The benefit of wrapping this project up is that I get to actually make a video about it, which would be nice. Well, it looks like we're live on YouTube and Twitch. And we're live on Diode Zone. It was not working on one of my computers for some reason, but it does seem to be live. Alright. Welcome back. Tuco was sitting right over there, and then just in time for the stream, I guess he decided to start wandering. Oh, hey boy. Don't walk on this desk. Alright, well, so what we've got going on here, I have this little pad of buttons. We milled this on the last stream, and now I just want to get around to designing an enclosure for it. I've got a chunk of scrap hardwood that seems just about perfect, and so I cut it down into a couple of pieces that are a good size to mill. So, and we could make this case somewhat complicated if we wanted to. My inclination is to try to keep it simple. There's even this spot for a screw hole. I don't even know if that's actually how we're putting this together. We could have this fit together with like a wood screw from the bottom, or like a machine screw with a captive nut. It could just, I don't know, like pressure fit or wood glue together or something, but there are a lot of ways we could make this happen. I guess the main thing that's going on with this button board is that it's very thick, because we've got these like very thick, chunky vintage switches with this nice action. And so I suspect what we'll want to do is have the top section of the case be fairly thick to kind of fill in most of that space with wood, so that it kind of comes to a nice surface. The other thing that's a bit weird about this, these switches are very square, and unless I'm getting out the tiny tools, I'm not going to get a very small radius on these squares. So one thing I might do is have somewhat larger, you know, maybe like 1/8" diameter kind of fillets around these switches to give it a good aesthetic clearance, but then to also you know, be something that's pretty easy to machine. And then further down, maybe on the backside milling, perhaps cut it so that I have flat edges that come right to the edges of the switch to support them really well, and then sort of reliefs around the corners so that I can actually mill those features easily. So yeah, something like that. And I just imagine this being 2 pieces of wood, one on the bottom, one on the top, you know, pretty standard. And then each piece, I think, will need 2-sided machining. I was imagining whether I could get away with 1-sided machining for each piece, but I think at least that feature I was just talking about for giving the buttons a good look on the top while also mechanically holding them well, I think that'll require 2-sided machining, so I might as well just think about how to do that. So one way might be, I start out with that rough piece of wood, stick it on the spoil board of the mill pretty much any old way, and then I do the top side machining, but I give myself a nice square edge during that machining operation, and then I can locate the part to the bracket on the build plate, or on the spoil board, and then I can use that for the backside machining. So something like that. I was also imagining that this could have some sort of mechanical feature that helps it stay attached to my little keyboard here on the desk. I don't know how necessary that is. Just after playing around with this a bit, I think I'd be happy if it would just sit on the desk nicely. So I'm less worried about it making some kind of, like magnet or Velcro connection to the keyboard, and more just worried about it sitting there nicely. But I've still got a CAD model of the keyboard handy, so we can see how that interacts. That's a good question from James. They're wondering why my announcement bot doesn't have access to the titles that the YouTube and all that have. Yeah, it's mostly because I don't have like an easy way of getting that information from YouTube or Twitch right now, and I haven't set up my own infrastructure for managing video metadata, which is what I really want to do. I'm working on that, it just doesn't exist yet. As usual, the reason why not is it's a bunch of work that I haven't done yet, because there's a lot of work to do and a finite amount of having done it. So there's that. If anybody wants to write that code, the announcement bot is on Git. Like, I'd appreciate you communicate with me about it though, because I won't necessarily just take pull requests full of code that I'm not expecting. Fix the exposure here. Yeah, I mean, I think the ideal way that this would work is that I would have like a spreadsheet that I put information about each stream in, both before and after streaming, and then I have a script that I run both before and after streaming that manages the metadata both for the live stream and for the archive and for the announcement bot. It's just that's not what I have yet, because I haven't gotten that far. That's what I want, but I'm not there yet. Oh, cool. Yeah, you're not even going to hear this response. That's fine. I'll just talk to no one in particular over here. Anyway. So. Do I want to be recording this? I don't think I care. Yeah, let's record this. Where's Tuco anyway? I just saw him walk by. Oh, there's the computer vision. What? Oh, that was weird. I just opened an instance of OBS on this computer, and it looked for a minute like there was 2 copies of the bottom half of the UI, but I think it was just a video buffer glitch rather than a UI glitch. A couple of frames later, it's fine. All right. Oh yeah, welcome to everyone who's here. Yeah, I don't have a huge amount of time to stream. gotta do a thing later. You know, going outside the house is scary, but sometimes I've got to do it because, you know, then I can, like, hang out with friends, which is nice. But yeah, sometimes that limits how long I can stream. You know, just human stuff. These buttons have a really nice tiny radius on the edges here. This looks really similar to the radius of my cutting tool I was using before, so probably around a 32nd of an inch or a millimeter. Anyway, my plan here, I'd already imported this keyboard model that I downloaded in GrabCAD and a couple of copies of this model from the Switch manufacturer, and the only things I really made myself here so far were I just made a really quick model of this 3.5" millimeter jack, and I made a really quick model of the PC board based on importing an SVG outline from KiCad. And I know KiCad has a feature where you can, oh gosh, there's an apple on the bottom of this keyboard. I just grabbed this Apple keyboard because it's the one that I happen to be using, but I don't really want to make this design specific to this particular model of keyboard necessarily. But yeah. So we should have an accurate model of these parts, and we can build an enclosure around that. I was going to make a quick model of just like a table surface to go with this, so that I can orient everything else. I was going to try to use box, but I think I'd rather use sketch. How big a table surface do I want to simulate here? Maybe like a couple of feet. There's a table. I can just use some wood texture, why not? The scale on that wood texture is kind of weird. It's supposed to be like 2 by 1 feet. Anyway. I was thinking there'd be a way to like fix the table down so it doesn't move, but I don't know if that exists, and I'm also not sure if I want it, so that's fine. Let's put the keyboard on the table. Now, this is weird because the keyboard, like, I think on the real keyboard, this angle here is actually cut so that it sits pretty flat on that edge. I don't know if this model actually took that into account. Like, I was just looking carefully at the real keyboard, and this is not actually, like, this edge and that edge are not parallel on the actual keyboard. But, whatever. I might have to make a sketch or something to figure out, or to describe the plane that this is actually sitting on. Can I do that? Okay, so I'm going inside the USB keyboard component. These are little flattened spheres. It's funny. Ooh, am I not gonna get the... Huh. That's weird. These are like only the major axis radius, maybe? Pardon me. This is annoying that I can't project this. Is there a different way of projecting? I mean, I might just eyeball it. This doesn't need to be accurate, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Alright, let's just delete that sketch and just... let's just make a joint and then set the angles manually. Sometimes it gets really slow at drawing lines. Not always. I wonder if it's got a fallback where it keeps having to copy the pixel buffer back onto some CPU accessible memory and then draw a line in software and then copy it back or something awful like that. Oh, I can't tip this along that axis, only along this axis. Maybe there's a different kind of joint I can use. That's what I want. doesn't seem great. This UI is also just getting really slow. I don't know if that's due to something that's visible, or do I just need to restart this program? Oh, that's nice. It's an integer number of degrees. 6-degree tilt. That's not too bad. Okay, and we've already got, so these joints are connecting the buttons to the PC board. Do I have a joint for the audio jack too? I don't think I do. I should though. Oh yeah, I actually, so these buttons were separate components which I placed by joining them. This, I placed it by extruding it in place. So I could now add a rigid group to keep them together, which might be the most sensible thing to do. I don't actually care about the position. I think it's talking about the PC board having a captured position, which I don't really care about, but it's going to mean there's going to be a specific position in the timeline, and then later I'll join it to something. Alright. Probably could have included the buttons in the rigid group now, too. Why don't I just do that? Rigid group. This might also be worth making a PCB assembly component. I have no idea what compute it's talking about. What compute is involved in a cut and paste? Yeah, I don't know what that warning's talking about. Oh, this is completely wrong, though. Yeah, maybe I don't want to move these. Maybe there's like, maybe this is what groups are for. I mean, I already made a rigid group, but like, isn't there some other way of grouping things? I don't know, I could also just leave these separate if making a component is going to break them. Okay, where should we put this? Cool, so if I move the PCB, it moves everything in that rigid group. Just put it roughly in place and then maybe think about what to really do. It's also kind of tempting to angle the buttons forward. Makes the whole project a lot harder though. Like I think if I was going to try to angle it this way, the way to approach it would be you're still milling along the same axis as the buttons, but now you've got effectively a sloped top and a sloped bottom. So maybe the way that would work is you do 2 milling operations, one on the rough piece to establish features on the top, and to mill out the top buttons, the top of the buttonholes, flip it over, mill out the underside, then flip it over again to give it the slope. I think that's kind of how it would have to work. I don't know. I don't think I want to make it that much harder just for 5 degrees or 6 degrees. And I'd have to approximate that slope anyway. It would have to be like a bunch of kind of crisscrossing passes with an end mill. It doesn't even need to be that close to the keyboard. And how thick is my actual back? I think the pins that are sticking out there in the CAD model are probably about as thick, if not a bit thicker than the solder joints I've got, because all these solder joints are trimmed. Yeah, 1.6 millimeters, 2 millimeter clearance should be plenty for the solder joints. I don't know if we need that much. What is the actual clearance here? Yeah, and it could have, I don't know, it could have little milled pockets for rubber feet on the bottom even. The other thing I was imagining is having a metal plate on the bottom. So 2 wood pieces and then a bit of brass or aluminum or something that could kind of hook around this part. So in that method, I would have sort of like a U-shaped piece of metal. And then this end of the U-shaped piece of metal could maybe Velcro to the underside of the keyboard, and this end of the U-shaped piece of metal would be permanently attached to the wooden box. And that would make it easier to just move the whole thing around or use it in my lap or something. Oh yeah, I should just add for context, this button pad thing, this is intended to be a switcher for 4 different USB channels. So I have a mouse and keyboard that I want to use with 4 different computers. There's a USB switcher device. I had a couple of streams earlier talking about taking that apart and replacing the firmware on it and designing this circuit for running 4 buttons off of a little audio cable. And then Jenny actually had a couple streams recently where she got a more recent version of this USB switcher, the same one that I'm modifying here. And then she discovered that they switched processors, so it's like a cost down. This one's using an STM8, which is already a pretty inexpensive micro. And then the one that Jenny got and took apart uses this Nuvotron 8051, which seems to be, it might even be pin compatible with the STM8, but it's definitely shooting for the same market. Yeah, Jenny asks if I can mill metal. Yeah, not like steel, but I can mill like brass and aluminum. It's pretty good at that. I've also done some like kind of harder materials that are still not metal. Like I've made some random stuff out of corian, which is this like countertop resin. I was making these enclosures for USB flash drives out of those. I've got some little extra bits of milled corian from that. It's got a nice feel. I should do more of these. Yeah, HDPE. Still got some HDPE blanks. So I guess the 2 ideas that are going through my head right now are one pretty simple, just like straightforward box that sits on the table by itself. And then the other option would be maybe something that actually kind of attaches to the keyboard. Button spacing doesn't quite match the keyboard's button spacing, which is not a big deal, but like I could try to put it there-ish, which seems kind of nice. There's also a USB cable that comes out near the middle here, and I was thinking it'd be cool to leave room for that to go in between or something. As far as the interface between this whole thing and the table, I've got this like self-adhesive rubber stuff that might be nice for that. It's like the same material you might find rubber feet made out of, but maybe like a bigger sheet of that. I could cut pieces out of it. So I could have a piece which is metal backed by a layer of that, which goes under this and then around, and then has Velcro on the top for attaching to the keyboard. That's feeling kind of complicated though. Like I might just want to keep this simple and just make a box. If I was just making a box, you know, I could try to keep this side pretty small so that it could get close to the keyboard here, which makes the whole thing a little asymmetric, but as long as it doesn't fall over, I'm fine with that. Having the metal foot under here, though, means that there's no danger of this falling over at all. It doesn't have to be metal, it could be 3D printed, which might be a little easier, but metal's nice. I could make this out of corian too, but the corian pieces I have are smaller. They're like, most of the pieces I have are 2 by 2 inches. Let's see, what kind of metal blanks do I have? I've also got a bunch of FR1. Oh, I've got these pre-cut blanks that are 25 mil thick aluminum. That's a little thin for what I'm imagining here. And is this thicker? This is thicker aluminum, but it's still... This claims to be 32 mils, so still pretty thin. I've got some much thicker aluminum, but that would just be a pain to work with. Black Delrin. Eighth inch. Oh, I've also got acrylic. Acrylic might work all right for this. I've only got my small blanks that are already the right size to put in the machine here. I've got some more material in the closet I might dig through if we need more ideas. Oh, this stuff is nice. It's very strong. What if I make the whole case bottom out of Delrin? Or HDPE? I mean, I could also have a piece of wood that kind of makes that snaky, like, C-shaped, but I wouldn't expect that to be that strong. Maybe it would be fine, though. Yeah, let's just draw up an outline for that and see how much space we have, maybe. Hi, everybody. Hi, Trevor. Just trying to figure out how this case should look. Got a vague idea. Let's make a new component.